Hello there, family. How are you? First, I want to thank all of the subscribers that I have so far. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. If you're not a subscriber of my channel, please subscribe, like, and share, and turn your notifications on. Thank you all so much for all of you support, everybody that has subscribed so far. I thank you so much. I am so grateful to you. I hope that I am able to bring you um, some information that you're able to use in your decision making process. Today we're going to be going into a deeper dive into Delgado. This is part 2. So, with that being said, here we go. All right. So, we're going to get into it. First things we need to do is take care of business. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in the favor of fair use. All right, so we're going to get started. As you see here, we have an article by The Real Deal. I would suggest that you go and subscribe to them and sign up for their notifications. They have a lot of great articles that you can look through. This particular article, as you can see the picture there has our friend Michael Galdo. The title of this is Cook County Land Bank Under Fire for Hiring Decision. Lawyer hired for agency lived with the top aide to board chair. So if you look at the pictures from left to right, you have Michael Delgado, you have Bridget Gaynor, who is the Cook County Land Bank chair in 2021. And then the picture next to her on the far right is Cara Highfield. She would be the chief of staff for Bridget Gaynor. So let's get into it because now we're in 2021. Michael Delgado is fresh off of his divorce from his wife, Bethany. The conclusion of that divorce matter happened to be that his divorce decree was sealed by the Department of Justice. Why would a divorce decree need to be sealed by the Department of Justice? No other than for the information that it contains, that it might have information about high-ranking political officials. I would like to know who those officials are. I would like to know how and who allegedly that Michael Delgado knows in the Department of Justice in order to have his divorce papers sealed. Why is his divorce papers any different from anyone else's? Divorce decrees are public information. You can go to the website of the Secretary of State and you can find out you can see different divorce decrees from anyone, from yourself if you have one. I have one there, so anybody can see that. So let's get into this article. It's going to be an interesting one. The Cook County Land Bank Authority is under fire for hiring a lawyer who was living with the top aide to the chair of the agency's board. Michael Delgado began working for the agency a month after a federal grand jury subpoenaed the land bank for records of its real estate dealings. In May 2021, the Chicago Sun-Times reported Delgado was living with Carrie Highfield, who until last month was chief of staff to Bridget Gaynor, the county commissioner who founded the land bank and oversees its board. So let's get into it. It is COVID. We're in COVID. It's May 2021. So we're in our second year or going into the second portion of COVID. And Michael Delgado is fresh out of his divorce, 2018. He is fresh. He is back on the streets. He is ready. He is single. He is ready to mingle. And he lands his eyes upon Miss Highfield, who happens to be, or doesn't happen to be, allegedly, the chief of staff to the Cook County Land Bank Commissioner. All right, let's keep reading. Delgado's contract with the land bank, which he didn't sign until 8 months ago after he began working for it, doesn't specify what he and his firm were hired to do, saying only that he was hired to provide guidance, counsel, and legal services as directed. I have a question. I'm going to pause right here because I have a question. I don't know if you have the same question just out of what we read. In the first portion, we read that there was a federal grand jury subpoena that was sent to the land bank. How is it that allegedly this lawyer is always around or involved when some sort of federal subpoena is taking place, or some sort of federal activity is swirling around this person? How? And why would you begin work, legal services, mind you, for an entity and you have not even signed a contract? Is that legal? Was that legal? What was that? Was that legal? Do you think that was something legal? How do you begin to start work for an entity and not even have a contract in place? And then when you do put a contract in place, it's so vague and so broad, nobody knows what you're actually doing. It says that he was to provide guidance and counsel and legal services. What type of guidance? Counsel for what? What type of legal services are you providing? The Cook County Land Bank, as a municipality lawyer, wouldn't the Cook County Land Bank need a real estate lawyer? Because don't they deal in real estate? I mean, these are just questions that I have that I'm asking. According to Delgado's bills for the land bank, his services included responding to the federal subpoena requesting records involving more than 20 properties the land bought and sold in the city and suburbs. At the time his contract was signed, the land bank already owed his firm more than $25,000, and as of now, he has been paid more than $32,000. Well, make it make sense to me how he's already been paid if he never had a contract. He didn't have a contract at this time. How has he already been paid? How is he being paid if he doesn't have a contract? And again, I'm going to ask, he's a municipality lawyer. He deals with ordinances and laws as it relates to municipalities. How is he being utilized in the sale of properties through the land bank? Okay, keep that in mind, or not keep it in mind, but it's a question that I have. Shortly after the executive director, Eleanor Gorski, signed the contract with Delgado, his firm also provided $684 worth of unspecified legal services to Gaynor's re-election campaign as an in-kind contribution. Let's take a note of two things. The first thing is this man was working without a contract. Who else do we know allegedly moves around a certain village that goes by Dalton, Illinois, in a certain township that goes by Thornton Township, and they operate with people with no contracts? These are astounding similarities to me. They're not coincidental things to me. They're astounding that these two things connect in that way. Then there is this exchange of an in-kind contribution for what favor? In our first episode, we said that once you have enough money, you don't need money. You need favors. You need people to agree to do things for you so that you can move further up the chain. When asked who recommended Delgado's services, Tara Cooper Wright, an outside consultant, told the outlet Delgado Law Group was hired given their extensive background and expertise in municipal law. That's very interesting. They were hired for their expertise in municipal law and their extensive background for a Cook County land bank. I'm going to say that again. In October 2020, Highfield, who was Gaynor's assistant in 2017, she registered to vote from a Burr Ridge home owned by Delgado, and both of them voted from that address in June. Gaynor hired Highfield to serve as her $95,000 a year chief of staff, where one of her roles was to keep tabs on the land bank. She left her position with Gaynor last month for a job with the Illinois Restaurant Association. Wow. Okay, so the chief of staff, who, let's put this in perspective, Delgado was dating. It says in 2017, she registered from Delgado's Burr Ridge home. Allegedly, would that imply that they were dating during Michael Delgado's divorce? Wow. Could this allegedly be the reason why Bethany filed for divorce? Interesting. It's a lot going on at that little address. It's a lot going on in that little place right there. That's a lot. That's a lot. But she becomes the assistant and of the Cook County Land Bank. I don't know. I'm just piecing some things together in my head. I hope you are forming some of the same questions I am. I also have an issue that all of a sudden this person no longer worked there. This is during COVID again. And they were making $95,000 a year, and they went from that to the Illinois Restaurant Association, which I'm sure was not paying that much a year, because during that time, there were a lot of restaurants that were going out of business because of COVID, because they were not equipped or set up to run as a takeout only business because of COVID and all the restrictions that we had moving around and those types of things. So how do you go from a $95,000 a year job to, I'm sure that pay was not the same. I'm sure of it. There's also two other articles there. Cook County selling 3,200 properties, mostly on South Side, for a song. And Cook County employee who got insider's deal on house who also evaded property taxes. Those are two other ones that we're going to look at. We're going to look at those two other articles as well. But this article was written July 29th, 2022. And like I said, things to note from this article. Was he getting insider information from the chief of staff? I mean, we know that Bethany allegedly had some insider information about his finances. Who works without getting paid? Who does that? Who works diligently and fervently on something in an office, a lawyer, mind you, without a contract or without getting paid? Who also benefited from Delgado having inside information from the Cook County Land Bank, allegedly? I mean, there's a lot of things that could be talked about. We're going to move along and I'm going to leave you with those questions. Now we're going to pause for like a little history lesson because I feel like we need a history lesson to remind us of past entities and things that we've had to combat during our time, our history, the American history. So now we're going to have a little history lesson. So, in having this history lesson, I wanted to come up with a term that we could use, and it would be our term on this channel for the Henyard administration. Because she so fluently moves from mayor to supervisor, I thought of it like a syndicate. We'll call it, quotation, the syndicate. And let's get our definition of a syndicate. A group of individuals or organizations combined to promote some common interests. So in this case, we'll say that the common interest of our alleged syndicate is to gain them more money, to gain them more assets, more money, more friends in different places, more allies, more partners. So we're going to discuss the mafia. We've all it's in our American history, it's in a lot of cultures' histories. So we're going to discuss it today in to give us a basis or a foundation on which to build our quote unquote alleged syndicate. I wanted to know more about the mafia anyway, and so I went to this website called howstuffworks.com. You can go there and look up anything you have question about and see if they have an article on it. I wanted to know more about the mafia and how to explain my syndicate or how I wanted to define my syndicate, and that's why I did this. But I also wanted you to come along with me so that you can understand as well and begin to think on things critically for yourself. Today, the word mafia is used to refer to almost any organized crime group, and in some cases, is even used to describe groups completely unrelated to crime. So today, we're going to be talking about our syndicate. And in this article, it gave 10 ways that the mafia got money or collected money for their organization. So in our syndicate, I'm going to read these 10 things that came from this mafia article, and we're going to see if any of them can relate to our quote unquote alleged syndicate. Garbage hauling, waste management, gambling, the purchasing of casinos, slot machines, carpentry and construction, maybe construction companies who were supposed to put roofs on things, windows for the elderly, I don't know. Wind energy, real estate, restaurants and pizzerias, bars, pornography, music recording, and drugs. So let's look at our alleged syndicate that we've been looking at for months. What things do we feel like they put their money into? I'd probably say carpentry and construction. There was recently a case with Oak Construction allegedly moving about in Dalton, Illinois, contracted or not contracted, allegedly, to do work on some homes. There happened to be a big whoop-de-doo about that company. We'll take a later look at that. We have a ways to go before we even get there. Isn't that a shame? Real estate. Do we think our syndicate likes to buy real estate? Where do they buy their real estate from? Why do they buy it? Why are they buying all this real estate? Restaurants and pizzerias. I mean, we allegedly know that This particular person we're talking about had a restaurant. We know that there are some bars involved. The administration there is involved with someone romantically who likes to open up bistros and bars, allegedly. So we can see some similarities the way our alleged quote unquote syndicate moves. The mafia is in its own right a family. To become a family member means to accept secret rituals, complicated rules, and tangled webs of loyalty. Those who run afoul of the family risk being ostracized and worse. Many mobsters who have turned against the mafia have met with an untimely, often gruesome death. The mafia at its core is about one thing: money. Throughout its history, the mafia has controlled everything from street corner drug trade to highest levels of government. Its members operate outside the law, yet become accepted and sometimes feared parts of the neighborhoods and cities they inhabit. Glorified by movies and television, hounded by law enforcement, marked for death by their enemies, these mobsters live violent and often brief lives. So now let's follow the patterns. Let's see what patterns we could follow in our own quote unquote syndicate that we've been following in Dalton, Illinois, and Thornton Township. It says that the mafia is at its core basically about money. Do we feel like our alleged syndicate is basically about money? I mean, does money motivate them, the syndicate? Do they do things for money? Where is money disappearing to? It also says that the mafia has controlled everything from street corner drug trade to the highest levels of government. So our syndicate, quote unquote, is moving in allegedly the same veins, I would say. So looking at patterns, our syndicate is shaping up to having some good similar patterns, allegedly. In organized crime, there's a hierarchy, with high-ranking members making decisions that trickle down to the other members of the family. The mafia is not a single group or gang. It is made up of many families that have at times fought each other in the bitter, bloody gang wars. At other times, they have cooperated in the interest of greater profits, sometimes even serving on a commission that made major decisions affecting all the families. Most of the time, though, they simply agree to stay out of each other's way. Wow, let's unpack this right here. It says the mafia is not a single group or a gang. I feel like our syndicate in the Henyard administration allegedly has two families. She has the Dalton, the Village of Dalton family, the administration there that she runs, and then she has the administration at the Thornton Township that she had been running. And so with that, they have gone through lots of things, lots of changes. Keith Freeman's gone from being fired to being on administrative leave. He's gone to being at depositions, to being back in the office, to people not wanting to talk to him. I mean, he's been allegedly fired from the township. I mean, this family has gone through a lot of breakups. The financial officer who is not showing up to the Village of Dalton meetings, who is the head of the department, allegedly hasn't been there for months. Where has she been? Where is she? I mean, this administration or this quote unquote alleged syndicate is really having some internal family problems that we all are outwardly seeing. The leader of each family, known as the boss or Don, all major decisions are made by the Don, and money made by the family ultimately flows to him. The boss's authority is used to resolve disputes and keep everyone in line. Just below the boss is the underboss. The underboss is the second in command, although the amount of power he wields varies. Some underbosses resolve disputes without involving the boss. Some are groomed to replace the boss if he is old or in danger of going to jail. Beneath the underboss are the capos. The number of capos varies depending on the overall size of the family. A capo acts like a lieutenant, leading his own section of the family. He has specific activities that he operates. The capo's territory may be defined geographically. All right, let's look at our syndicate then. Who is the boss? Who is the boss? We have the tenure administration on both sides, on both Dalton and Thornton Township, and she is the proverbial alleged leader of both sides. Would she be the boss? Do you consider her the boss or a Don? I mean, I don't know. I think it would depend on your definition of a boss or a Don. But they definitely look to her to resolve disputes, that they're having or alleged disputes that they're having. It says just below the boss is an underboss. So let's look at our syndicate. Who do we think our underboss would be? I mean, at one point in time, I think we all thought the underboss would be Keith Freeman because he was essentially calling the shots underneath of Hinyard at the village of Dalton and at the township. He was on payroll for both. I think as this administration has evolved, I think your current underboss, allegedly, would be KP. Keith Price, allegedly, would be the underboss. I mean, now he has some sort of authority that he seems to think he's going to be throwing around at the township meetings. And he also attends the Dalton meetings. We've seen him on the videos be in both meetings. Why he would be at the Dalton meeting still baffles me to this day because he doesn't live in Dalton. As far as I know and have researched, he doesn't have any businesses in Dalton. Now, I can't say that he doesn't have any right to be in the Thornton Township meeting or the Thornton Township because he lives under the Thornton Township umbrella. So as far as that is concerned, he's, able to move around there because of that. And I find that acceptable. I don't find his behavior acceptable. I don't find his ethics acceptable. I don't find his demeanor acceptable. Because when you are a public servant, you should not be intimidating the residents or anyone that you are supposed to be serving. But I digress. Capos. Capos are like your captains. They're your lower level people. I mean, let's look at our syndicate allegedly. Who do we think is a capo? Allegedly, child. I'm going to tell you. Pumpkinhead probably think he a capo because of the way that they let him move with them. So Pumpkinhead is probably a capo. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know where Kamal Woods would kind of fit into this. Because he's getting paid by the village or the township, but I haven't seen him produce any type of work or make any type of report in front of the residents, being that he's the head of the youth prevention program. I haven't heard a report for him. If you all can find one or you heard him, you have video of him making a report when the leaders of those committees are supposed to come up, someone send it to me and let me know. But I haven't seen anything, and I really wouldn't know how to establish where he is on the food chain, allegedly. Because the only thing I've ever seen him do is provide security or confusion or whatever you want to call it. But that's just my opinion. The views and opinions expressed on this platform are that of mine. Okay? All right. And the other question I had was, what happens when there's a power struggle, or there's a struggle for power? Do we see the potential in this syndicate for there to be a potential alleged struggle for power? I think we're seeing that now. We're seeing finally the elected trustees, the trustees that were elected by the public, began to wake up, if you will, to wake up and say, oh, I don't want to be a part of this. I see this going somewhere that I don't want to go, and I don't want to be a part of this. And so now they're banding together and creating a struggle for power. I mean, this struggle for power is beginning to get real. Today, there is a meeting, a village meeting in Dalton, where you're having a special meeting at 6:15 before you have the so-called village meeting given by the mayor at 6:30 or 6:45 or 7 o'clock, or whenever she decides to show up today. I hope she have her eyelashes on correctly when she do, because that one, I think it's that right eye where she put it on upside down. That's bothering me. So I hope she get that right today. All right. All right, so what are the rules of a mafia? Because we then begin to look at what are the rules that we are seeing enforced in our alleged syndicate. Okay, the rules of a mafia is as defined by how stuff works. Some of the non-negotiable rules of the mafia include no direct contact with another mafia member's friends. Use a third party to introduce you. Wow. That sounds a little bit like when we was talking about on the first part of the Delgado piece, when we said, or when the Cook County recorder reported that Michael Delgado introduced the now governor of Illinois to the village of Cicero's president, Dominic. Sounds, I don't know. Allegedly, it looks a little similar to me. It says friends, wives, and off limits don't be seen with don't be seen with to befriend a cop. Always be available for Cosa Nostra and always be on time for appointments. It's about respect. Families use a variety of activities to accomplish the mafia's main goal of making money. One of the most common is the one of the simplest, extortion. Extortion is forcing people to pay money by threatening them in some way. Mafia protection rackets are extortion schemes. Mobsters demand that a shop owner pay $100 a week, for example, to protect the business person from criminals. The twist is that the mafia members themselves are the criminals who threaten the business. So let's look at that. Let's look at our syndicate. How do these rules apply to our syndicate? Allegedly, we know that our syndicate sometimes refuses business license. And they're very selective about who they refuse to give business licenses to. How? Because business licenses should be a simple process. You fill out your paperwork, you pay your money, your taxes, and how much the license costs to your village that you're going to be doing business in, so that you can begin to operate. Why would your business license even be going through a scrutiny of anybody's decision? I mean, unless the business is going to do harm to the village or the township, Why should your business be going through any type of extra scrutiny based on that? Allegedly, it is alleged that people who are loyal to the Henyard administration don't have problems getting their business license renewed or getting a business license, period. I mean, this is all alleged, but this is what is the talk. Lots of good things to think about here. Organized criminals have long invested in legitimate business as both a base of operations and a means of laundering money from illegal activities such as drug trafficking, weapons dealing, prostitution, smuggling, counterfeiting, and robbery. The mafia favors unregulated or cash-based businesses that require the strength and stomach to do things members of polite society avoid. Waste management, for example, has become so strongly tied to organized crime that in some parts of the country, the term sanitation crew might as well be synonymous with the mob. This is coming from the article How Stuff Works. So let's look at the syndicate, quote unquote, that we have and are dealing with. It says that based on operations, they do legitimate businesses as both a base of operation and a means of laundering money. So let's look at what we're dealing with here. Allegedly, Mr. Woods opened up a car wash. Okay, nothing wrong with a car wash. People need their car wash. It's a legitimate business. Allegedly, he opened up a bistro. Okay, it's a restaurant. People like to eat. Allegedly, Mr. Woods had a clothing store. Man, people like to be fly in Chicago. They definitely like to be fly. And the kids do too. Allegedly, could these have been means to launder money? And what happened? What happened to those businesses? All right. So let's move now to fighting. How do we fight our alleged syndicate? How is the mafia fault? This is what this portion of the article speaks to. And I highly encourage you to go to howstuffworks.com and look at this article. There's a lot of things that you can learn from it. One of the government's most important tools in the fight against organized crime is RICO. The law officially is the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It's Title 18 of the United States Code, sections 1961 through 1968. It was passed in 1970, specifically to help fight the mafia. It allows prosecutors to go after entire organizations. Racketeering, a crime that was invented with the law and based on the word for mafia schemes or rackets, is making money through an unlawful enterprise that shows a pattern of such illegal money-making activity. For officials to arrest and prosecute high-level criminals as part of a crime family, they need to find out what's going on throughout the organization. They can bust drug dealers or truck hijackers, but the family will just find new ones. They need to reach the top to really crack a family. And the best way to do that is by sending someone to infiltrate the family undercover. So let's talk about this. There's a quote on the bottom. It came from, my background is heavily steeped in the church. So this quote comes from a song that I've sung all of my life. And it says, time is filled with swift transition. Why am I saying that? Because there are so many things. Let's look at this syndicate. The syndicate has been in effect and performing for the last 2.5 years. People are now getting weary and they're now saying, when are they going to come and arrest this mayor? When are they going to come and arrest this supervisor? This article clearly tells you that in order to arrest and prosecute high-level criminals, so government would be a high-level crime because it's authority on a high level government. In order for them to do that, they have to find out what's going on in the organization, like the things that we talked about. How is the money being made? Through what types of businesses are being made? Who all is involved? How long has this been going on? How does it work? How do you filter money and people through this alleged or quote unquote syndicate? All of those things they try to uncover because they want to get to the very highest level of the family or the organization. Why? Because it doesn't make any sense to take out a drug dealer because they'll just put another one on the street. That's so simple and easy to do. You just get somebody else to do it. Somebody else will be willing to make the money. So that's why it's taking so long, because they have to put together all of the information and all of the evidence as to make a airtight, solid case to bring down a whole organization. That organization may consist of, man, loads of people. It could be hundreds of people. I mean, that would mean that the law enforcement agency that is working is literally collecting files on each and every person. And not just like small files, like complete files, like of everything that they're doing. That takes a lot of manpower, that takes a lot of people, and it takes a lot of time. That's why I said time is filled with swift transition, because as the time goes on and these files build and the case gets thicker and thicker, there'll be a point to which they feel like they have what they need. And it is now time to go after the head of the organization. So don't get discouraged, Dalton or Thornton Township. Time is filled with swift transition, and you never know when it will be the quote unquote syndicate's time. All right, so now we're going to look at a portion of this, we'll say the syndicate allegedly, that is out here in the Dalton, Illinois, Thornton Township area, or at least people that are players, allegedly. Emanuel Cushwell, Illinois House Speaker of the House. If you go back and look at the video where Henyard was sworn in, he is out in the crowd that day. I'll bring more to you on that, and I will find the video and we will have it and we will look at it. I will play it. Shanti Rains Welk. She is now currently a 4th District Circuit Court judge, and she is married to the Speaker of the House. Then we have Michael Delgado, who is the super lawyer. And then we have Tiffany Henyard, who is the mayor and supervisor. She's the mayor of Dalton and the supervisor of Thornton Township. All right, let's get a little information, a little background on the happy couple here. Shanti Rains Welk. She was a municipal lawyer for Blue Island, Calumet City, Dalton, Sauk Village, Maywood, Park District. She has aspirations, or had aspirations back in 2021, of being a judge, which we now can tell you that she is a 4th District Circuit Court judge in Cook County. Also, for you all that don't know, she was the original Dalton, Illinois village attorney before your super lawyer came. Yeah, that's right. The Speaker of the House's wife was the village attorney for Dalton before Delgado came. So then you have Emanuel Chris Welk. He served as state representative in the Illinois General Assembly from 2013 to 2021, where he then became the first Black Speaker of the House. And allegedly his aspirations could be to become the governor of Illinois. We're going to take a deeper look at him, um, and you're going to find out some interesting things about Mr. Welks, allegedly, according to some article reportings. Rains Welk was accused of having a conflict of interest. Would she be making decisions in the best interest of the municipality she worked for, or for her Speaker of the House husband? Did her ambition to become judge cloud her judgment in representing residents fairly? How do you think her her husband being Speaker of the House could influence her decisions as a lawyer in these townships? I mean, if she is supposed to be giving counsel to an elected official, would she give counsel that would favor her husband in some way? Interesting things to think about when you have a married couple involved in politics. Do they cross each other? Are they how is one seat affecting the other seat if they cross? Did her ambition to become judge cloud her judgment in representing residents fairly? I mean, it's a question. All right, now let's look at the other two. You have Tiffany Henyard. She was a Dalton Village trustee from May of 2013 to May of 2021. She became Dalton mayor in May 2021 and Thornton supervisor in March of 2022. You can read her aspirations. We won't get into that, but you can read them. Also, let's look at Michael Delgado. He is the Illinois attorney. He was registered to be an attorney in November 1998, so that's when he got his law license. He's a municipality council since we know 2005 is when he started with the town of Cicero, and then 2010 is really when he started to ramp up his clients in the municipality areas. I would call him the legal loophole finder, because if you need to find a loophole in a municipality law, ordinance, or anything of that nature, this is the man. I'm telling you, he has a brilliant legal mind. I will give him that. But his aspirations are to be legal counsel to the White House or even possibly to the president, allegedly. Michael Delgado presents an interesting problem to people who get in his way, and an interesting solution to people who want to follow his way. That's interesting. That is something that we really need to keep in mind. Let's get into Shanti Rain Wilkes, who is we're now in 2021. Henyard is she's only the Dalton mayor at this time, because she doesn't become supervisor until March of 2022. This article that we're about to get into now is from the injusticewatch.com. It was written by Rita Oseguera, July 14, 2022. Let's get into the title. It says, "Who are you loyal to?" Complaints arose from Judge-elect Shanti Rain Wilkes' work in the South suburbs. Rain Wilkes, who is headed for the bench after a win in last month's primary election, has spent a decade as a municipal attorney for several South suburban municipalities. For more than a decade, Rain Wilkes has worked as a municipal attorney for a half a dozen small municipalities in southern Cook County, where low-income residents and people of color make up the majority of the population. A municipal attorney, typically appointed by the mayor, is supposed to provide a wide gambit of counsel, including giving legal advice to elected officials, drafting ordinances, reviewing contracts, and ensuring that public meetings follow proper rules and procedures. I want you to remember that paragraph. I want you to remember what the responsibilities of a municipal lawyer is to the village. It says it's a gambit of counsel, including legal advice to elected officials, drafting ordinances, reviewing contracts, and ensuring the public meetings follow proper rules and procedures. Her work, though, is now coming under scrutiny after Raines Welk, who is married to Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welk, defeated 3 others in the Democratic primary election last month for a 4th sub-circuit seat on the Cook County Circuit Court. She faces no Republican opposition in the November general election. In interviews with Injustice Watch, several current and former municipal officials in 3 suburbs where Raines Welk has worked, Blue Island and Calumet City, in addition to Dalton, questioned her ability to be fair and impartial on the bench based on their experiences with her. So there you hear it. You hear that people are having these questions. Is she able to be fair in her advice? Okay? So she is currently, we're in 2021, and she is the village lawyer for Dalton, Illinois. If you did not know, the Speaker's of the House's wife used to be the village attorney for Dalton, Illinois. We're going to get into her more deeper as well because she ran for circuit court judge, and I told you she is currently the circuit court judge. But however, she was found not qualified to be a judge by the Illinois Lawyers Association. And I will show you that. You can look, there's several articles, but we will also get into that article about that. There will be a part 3 to this. I hope you stay for the part 3. So now we're going to read this next part here. It says, meetings of the Village of Dalton Board of Trustees often feature Mayor Tiffany Henyard and trustees speaking over one another and accusing the other of wrongdoing. The discourse started months after Henyard took office in May 2021 and quickly escalated. Henyard canceled meetings and locked trustees out of the village hall. Earlier this year, 5 of the 6 trustees and the city clerk hosted meetings without the mayor. All the while, as the conflict grew, the village's legal counsel, Shanti Rain Welks, remained quietly in the background. She has not been visible for the village. You contact her via email, there's no response, said Dalton trustee Kiana Belcher, who complained that Rains Welks responds only to Henyard, not trustees. The Dalton trust, we'll get to that in a second. So let's go back. Remember I said I want you to remember what the duties of the legal counsel is supposed to be. Right here it says the legal counsel is to provide a wide gamut of counsel, including giving legal advice to elected officials, drafting ordinances, reviewing contracts, and ensuring the public meetings follow proper rules and procedures. It's that last part. So how was it that the trustees were locked out of the village hall and could not conduct their meeting? Because as the village attorney, she should have stepped in and said, you cannot do this. According to the rules and the procedures of the Open Meetings Act, you cannot do this. But she didn't. And this was the problem. This is what the other villages were complaining about, that she represented as well, that she refused to act. Was it her Speaker of the House husband, allegedly, that caused a conflict of interest? Interesting. The Dalton trustees, so dissatisfied with Rain Welks, hired counsel last September to answer their questions about issues that come up for a vote and advise them on procedures and rules. Belcher said hiring an outside lawyer was necessary because Rain Welk was not responding to their questions about alleged violations of ordinances by the mayor. So let's talk about this. Let's unpack this paragraph. This is now how you enter into, or entering the picture is Bert Olderson and Mark Stirk. The trustees had to hire them in order to be able to have sound legal counsel, because their lawyer that was hired for the village was only being responsive to one person. That's why I have the question here. Why is the village lawyer only being responsive to the one person that does not pay her? The village pays her. So why would she be responsive to Henyard only via email when the village is paying her? She should be responsive to the trustees as well, because the village is paying her. So that is why Bert Olderson and Mark Stirk had to enter into the picture. So when you see Henyard go ballistic about putting them on the agenda every single time, this is what she said: I'm going to put them on the agenda every single time because you all hired them illegally. And no, they did not, because the village lawyer was not being responsible to them and was not adhering to the contract of what they were supposed to be doing, which was giving legal counsel to the elected officials. So when you hear her say that, that is a total lie. They should be paid. They need to be paid. And I'm glad that the trustees hired them and they are being paid. You are going to see Bert Olderson and Mark Stirk enter the picture in another portion of this series. For me, I feel like Bert Olderson and Mark Stirk are the superheroes in this whole saga. And you're going to understand and see why when we get a little further down the road. It's fin to get interesting with this research that we're doing. All right. In an emailed statement, a spokesperson for Rain Welks' campaign and such corporation counsel served as lawyers for the municipality, not as the parliamentarian, not as the enforcer of good manners at public meetings, and not as the political referee between disgruntled trustees in the minority bloc and the executive branch. The spokesperson called the complaints against Rain Welks manufactured, inflated, and organized. First of all, who did that sound like? Bamboozled, hoodwinked, okay, by her campaign opponents and allies, and said they had failed with voters. He also sent statements from officials in two other governmental bodies in which Rain Welk has worked, Sauk Village and the Maywood Park District, which praised her work ethic and service to their communities. Who does this sound like? I mean, they are using the same script, allegedly, but it sounds the same to me. Now, let's say it says here that the village attorney is not to serve as the parliamentarian. Let's look at the definition of what a parliamentarian is in relation to what the duties are of the village attorney. So a parliamentarian is a person who is an expert in the formal rules and procedures of deliberative assemblies. We saw in the last few slides that the village attorney is responsible for making sure that policies and procedures as it relates to meetings are followed. So she would indeed be the parliamentarian in the building. She would be the person that they would ask if the mayor would be allowed to do certain things. And this is why her judgeship came into question. Because you are, in effect, a judge when you're a village attorney. Because you have to judge, according to the rules, who is correct in the eyes of the law. Did you see that? That's the same thing that a judge does. They weigh the facts against policies and procedures to determine who is correct in the eyes of the law. Wow, that conflict of interest is just coming and coming and coming, allegedly. Again, we're going to have a part 3 to this. We're going to have several parts to this because this just goes on and on and on. And I mean, it is interesting. My source credits that I have for this are howstuffworks.com, the Cook County Recorder.com, injusticewatch.com, and the Chicago Sun-Times was also mentioned. So, these are the resources that I use for this video. If you like this video, if you want to become a member of this channel, and I hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button. Please like and share this video. I plan to bring more research-based videos and more questions to you as my audience, to be able to start the conversations so that you can begin to educate yourself. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you want to talk about next or who you want to talk about next. I have plenty of things that I want to talk about, but I want to get you involved as well. I want to know what you want to know. I want to know what you want to talk about so that I can begin to bring some other things to this platform. I hope that this platform involves you, and I hope that this platform evolves because of you. It is my sincere hope that any of this information can help you in your political making process, that you are more armed with the truth and you are more armed and able to be a educated voter. I hope that you all decide to join me in this journey as I discover a lot of things along with you. Some of the things that I have planned are exciting. The next episode, we are going to talk about Delgado in juxtaposition to Safe Speed, and all of the people that are involved with that. So we're going to begin to connect the dots. I just showed you how Delgado ended up in Dalton. He knows the Speaker of the House. He has done business with him in municipalities up north that he's involved in. He also would know him from his political connections. And that is how he got to Dalton, because Chris Welk and his wife, Shanti Welk, they work at the same law firm. So I'm sure, allegedly, that when she was having problems out in Dalton, she mentioned it to the Speaker of the House, allegedly. And he knew exactly who to send. Our boy, the super lawyer. So I hope you all come back for the second part, or the third part. It'll be the third part of this in research. We're doing a research project together, and we're going to use the truth to be able to make informed decisions. And that is all I care about on this platform. Thank you so much for looking and liking and sharing and hopefully coming a part of this platform.